Hi, this is Christy Whitman with the Quantum Success Show, where you can get your information and inspiration to create your desires. And as you can see, I have a very, very special guest. If you don't recognize his face, this is Bill Harris. And Bill Harris, you probably saw him on many different movies, especially The Secret. Bill began teaching personal growth trainings in 1979 as an assistant with the Dale Carnegie Training Organization. And since then has been involved in personal development for over 35 years as a seeker, a teacher, public speaker, author, musician, composer, therapist, workshop leader, and business owner. He is a certified trainer of neuro-linguistic programming and is trained in Ericksonian hypnosis. He's a longtime student of contemporary psychology, Eastern philosophy, and physical sciences, the evolution of nonlinear systems, so chaos theory, and the effects of a wide range of neurotechnologies on human change, evolution, and healing. Bill is currently president and director of Centerpoint Research Institute. And Bill started Centerpoint Research Institute in 1989 with borrowed recording equipment set up on his kitchen table. I just love that. And today, nearly 2 million people in over 193 countries have used Centerpoint programs to improve their lives. And he has become one of the best-known personal growth teachers in the world. Like I said, featured in The Secret. Bill has shared the stage with many of the top business and human potential leaders in the world, including Jack Canfield, Stephen Covey, the Dalai Lama, Stuart Emery, Ken Wilber, Sir Richard Branson, to name a few. So in 2003, Bill was invited to address the United Nations Values Caucus. And his role as director of Centerpoint Research Institute, Bill is the creator of Holosync Solution Program, the Life Principles Integration Process, and several other courses. The Holosync Solutions amazing program utilizes Centerpoint's proprietary Holosync sound technology embedded beneath soothing music and environmental sounds to induce deep meditative states. So I like to call it the lazy man's way of meditating. So it creates many significant mental, emotional, spiritual, and health benefits. And the Life Principles Integration process is literally designed to help people discover how they can unconsciously create their internal states and external results and show them how to become aware and take control of these internal processes to create whatever they want in their life. So Bill, thank you so much for being here. I'm really, really excited to have you on the show.
You are very welcome.
And I know that we are going to be talking about how awareness, and you have your own definition of awareness, what that is, how awareness is really the key to a well-lived life. Can you explain that?
Well, I think I should start off by just giving a really short description of Holosync for people who don't know what that is, because it's kind of the tool that we use here to create tremendous awareness in people. I was a long-time meditator. I started meditating when I was about 19 years old, and about 15, 16 years later, in the mid-'80s, I'd been meditating a long time by that point. I was still really miserable and angry and screwed up. I was quite a screwed-up person in those days. But at any rate, there was a couple of pieces of research that I stumbled over. One of them was pretty well known to a lot of people, which was the Menninger Clinic and the TM movement, the Transcendental Meditation people. They had studied meditators and measured their brainwave patterns. And so in the 70s, they knew what brainwave patterns meditators were making while they were meditating. So that was common knowledge among people anyway that cared about such things. And then I stumbled on a paper that was written by a researcher at Mount Sinai Medical Center in New York, a man named Dr. Gerald Oster. And he was describing a characteristic of the brain that when different pure sine wave audio tones were presented, I mean, this sounds complicated, but there's no test at the end. You don't have to remember it.
Thank goodness.
If you were directing some of those tones to the left side of the brain and some to the right side of the brain in certain combinations using headphones so that the tones went into, discreetly into one ear or the other, doing this, you could change brainwave patterns. So and he didn't even give any use for this. He was just talking about this is something that happens in the brain. No use for it given. Very academic kind of research article. So I said, these are the brainwave patterns of meditation, and this is a way to change brainwave patterns. Could we change them to those of meditation? And there are also many other brainwave patterns that you might want to change them to or away from. There are brainwave patterns of learning, creativity,
sure,
confidence, motivation, things like that. And then there are also brainwave patterns that are associated with being sad, being anxious, being depressed, being angry, this sort of thing. Almost any state or mental ability that a human being could have, there's a kind of a brainwave signature, you might say, a brainwave pattern that goes with it. So at any rate, I was interested at that time in meditation. So as you said, I borrowed some equipment from the engineering lab at the University of Portland, where I was a graduate student in music at the time. And I also, by the way, I didn't put this in the bio, but I also bought a few things, I don't even remember which things they were now, from a catalog for television repairmen. And I don't even know how I knew there was such a thing. But this was a long time ago. This was about 27 years ago. At any rate, I started making these cassette tapes, because this was even before CDs, in my basement. And I and a few of my friends started listening to them, and it blew our minds what happened, because we were able to put ourselves in the deepest, most profound meditative states, and things that we'd read about in all those books about meditation. You read all those books about meditation, it tells you all this stuff's supposed to happen, and then you try it, and there you are sitting there going, my leg itches. What's that sound out there? There's two things I forgot to put on my grocery list. And it's all this mundane stuff that you're thinking, that's not what this book said was supposed to happen. So anyway, we were having these amazing experiences. And then what happened was that over time, I stopped being so angry. I stopped being depressed. I stopped driving everybody away. All these emotional changes happened. We were having these tremendous spiritual experiences. My mind became clearer. I seemed to be more creative. My music got better. Just everything in my life just about began to just balance out and refine itself, and everything just started to flow really easily. And at the end of about 4 years of this, we had about, 150 people scattered across the U.S. and some in Europe who were using this informally, just through kind of word of mouth. And people started saying, you should create something, a way to share this and sell it. So I started this little company with just me and another partner, who, quite frankly, turned out to be the partner from hell, and we parted company after a short while, which was a good thing. But anyway, as you mentioned, this has grown over the years because it's so powerful and it works so well, till we have pretty close to 2 million people in 193 countries.
It's impressive.
Who have used Holosync over the years, and Centerpoint has become a kind of an iconic company in the personal growth industry.
Sure.
So as I was going through, I could go into all kinds of detail about Holosync and what it does, and how it gives you the same benefits as meditation. We found 8 times faster than traditional meditation. And you cut right past the several-year learning curve where it's not doing that much, and you're sitting down, trying to get yourself to sit down and do it every day. But at any rate, over the years, I've tried to figure out, why is this so powerful? Why does this work so well? Why does it change people so well? And I've been through many iterations of how to explain this, which in some way are different ways of saying the same thing. But at any rate, I finally realized, actually the reason I really finally realized this was because I became very good friends with a very famous Zen master, Genpo Roshi. and we did a tour around the United States and did things in quite a few cities and so on. But some things I learned from him kind of made me realize that what Holistic was doing was creating tremendous amounts of awareness in people, and that all the things that were happening, there are actually a lot of health benefits to Holistic also, because it dramatically lowers stress levels. It lowers the amount of stress hormones and raises the levels of many hormones that kind of combat stress and so on. But I don't know if I can attribute those to awareness or not. But all the other benefits are really kind of coming from awareness. So my elevator speech, when people, what an elevator speech is.
Of course, yeah.
Tells you what you can do, and it's so short that you could tell it during an elevator ride.
Yeah.
People say, well, what do you do? I say, well, I have this amazing tool that creates tremendous amounts of awareness. And then I show people where to direct that awareness to gain the greatest amount of choice in their life. And the reason I say it that way is because what I've found is that awareness creates choice. That there's kind of, you might even say there's two ways to navigate your way through life. One is where most of what you're creating is happening largely on autopilot. We have many, many internal cognitive processes that we're running all the time. In order for people to understand what you and I are saying as they're listening, they have to do all these things internally, cognitive processes that they're running to make sense of what we're doing. And people make sense of the world and interact with the world. Stuff comes in through their senses, and then they filter it in a tremendous amount of ways, delete most of it, change a lot of it, and then they make these internal representations of it that kind of correspond to the different senses internally. And then those internal representations, which are also create our beliefs, our values, and internal strategies, ways we make decisions, all this stuff is going on out of our awareness. And it's created mostly by our early experiences. So it's set up in a certain way, and then it runs on autopilot, which is a good thing if it's running in a resourceful way.
If it's a good habit.
Yeah. If it's running in a resource, because otherwise you'd have to rethink everything all the time. Every time you got to a chair, you'd have to figure out what a chair is all over again. But we make all these generalizations, and some of the generalizations are quite complex, because we decide when we meet somebody whether we like them or whether they're safe or whether we want to interact with them, and whether something is true and whether it's not true on very slender amounts of input based on other stuff we have stored inside. We don't even know we're doing all this stuff. And so all the self-sabotage stuff that people are trying to get rid of is an example of this autopilot stuff that's gone awry.
Yes. Because
of different traumatic experiences we've had. And I don't mean traumatic experiences necessarily like you were chained to the radiator in the basement or something. I mean, it could be really terrible experiences.
Right.
But just having a parent be overwhelmed with their own life, and you come home from school with a picture you drew that you're really proud of, and your mother doesn't pay much attention to it, and you draw all these conclusions from it.
Yes.
Or they get mad at you about something, and they don't think they're overdoing it that much, but to your little 2-foot-tall Christy, it's like, whoa, and suddenly you make a generalization about authority figures or men or women or something because of that, and then automatically you're creating all this stuff in your life. So awareness really is the ability, at least part of what awareness does, is that it allows you to see yourself doing these unconscious things as you do them, and see the consequences as they happen. So the first principle that I mentioned really was that awareness creates choice. When you see something with awareness, it becomes a choice. When it's out of your awareness, it just runs on autopilot. And then a lot of things that are happening in your life seem like they're, quote unquote, just happening. I keep running into the same kind of partners and have the same issues. I keep getting in the same financial difficulties. I keep ending up in the same situations over and over again. I keep having the same awful feelings when certain things happen, when certain things trigger me. All this is sort of happening on autopilot. What we found at Centerpoint is that when you see yourself creating these things with awareness, because you are creating them. What I mean by creating them is they're being generated inside of you. They're not coming from outside. The trigger is maybe outside of you.
Sure.
But your response is being generated by you. In fact, let me take a side trip and talk about choice a little bit, because awareness creates choice. So, we were talking about this a little bit before we started recording, that we don't have a choice about everything. You don't have a choice about what other people do. You can influence them to some degree if they're near you, but you don't really have a choice about what everybody else does, and people have a different agenda than you do, and sometimes their agenda interferes with yours. So that's one thing we don't have a choice about. We do our best to influence it, but we don't. It's not like you have control over everybody else and what they do.
Right. Try as I might.
Yes, I've tried really, and I've noticed this really disconcerting thing that other people will not do what I want them to do all the time. Sometimes they do, but so and we don't have a choice about cosmic rays and gravity and volcanoes and the sun and weather and the big one is we don't have a choice but the fact that everything in the universe is impermanent, and it eventually falls apart or ends or passes away in some way, and and we have sensitive bodies, and we can be hurt and get sick, and so there's a bunch of stuff we can't do. We can influence some of it to some degree. You can wear warm clothes when it's cold, and exercise to be more healthy and that sort of stuff. So I just sort of say, okay, that stuff, you do what you can to influence it, but by and large, don't worry about it, because it's just part of the human condition. But then I realized there were 4 things that, because we create them inside, we could have a choice about them if we had enough awareness to observe how we're doing it. Because when you do that, the awareness creates choice. And then I'll just throw this in right now. We'll talk about this a little bit more in a minute. But once you have a choice, you will always choose what serves you. You'll always choose what is most resourceful. As soon as you see how you're creating something that isn't good for you, or maybe isn't good for other people too, it just immediately seems so ridiculous to keep doing it, that something you've been doing and couldn't stop doing when you were doing it out of your awareness, now that you see it, it becomes a choice, and you automatically, instantly stop doing it and do something more resourceful. And in fact, there's a part of you that knows what is resourceful. You don't even need to say, what would be resourceful in this situation? You just know. And so this is why awareness is so powerful, because when you are aware enough, you instantly see the things you're doing that are sabotaging you or creating problems in your life, and you also very naturally and very quickly they just fall away. You can't do them. You can do them for your whole life if you do them outside your awareness. Even though you hate the results, even though you're like overeating, let's say, is a good example. People know that they're overeating when they're overeating. They know they're eating an extra donut or two, or they know they're eating after they are full. They know they're eating stuff that isn't good for them. That knowing doesn't do any good.
Right.
But if you can be aware and see yourself, how you are generating the impulse to eat more or to eat the wrong thing or to keep eating, you can see exactly how you're generating this whole feeling and behavior as you do it. It just becomes so obvious to you that it's a really bad idea that you just stop doing it. And what seemed so difficult before just is easy. So one of the things I often say is that the reason why people keep buying personal growth programs over and over, thinking, well, this next one is going to have that little thing that I haven't got yet, that is the reason why I keep buying these things, and yet it never quite gets to the place where I'm going, oh, now I figured it out. Now that's satisfying. Now I can do what I want. And all the how-to information that people have learned, once they get this awareness, the how-to information becomes like painting by numbers. You just go out and do it. Because all the stuff that you were doing to hold yourself back from doing it, it just falls away. And so the how-to is a Google search away for almost anything.
Sure.
How-to used to be a hard thing for people to figure out 20 years ago or more.
Sure.
But now you can find out how to do anything in a few minutes, really. That doesn't mean you can master doing it in 20 minutes, but the how-to part is not the hardest part. The hardest part is managing yourself so you don't get in your own way, so that you don't quit, so that you don't get discouraged, so that you don't assume that whatever's happening means you're a dope and you'll never figure it out or whatever. Because that's what we do. 2% of people that master success principles in the terms of knowing them are successful, and the other 98% still sabotage themselves. So anyway, maybe I should stop now, and if you have any comments or questions, I have another real big piece here to add. But
well, you're saying that the understanding of awareness, or even the lack of awareness, really underlies every kind of success or lack of success.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Yes.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I'm saying. That the missing piece. People think, well, if I take this new seminar, that sounds really good, and it may be really good. I'm not saying that the seminars aren't good; they don't have really valuable information. But if the part of you that makes it hard to implement all this stuff is running on autopilot, and it is running in a dysfunctional way because of different stuff that happened to you when you were growing up, these cognitive processes are kind of misformed in a way, and parts of them don't work. I mean, a real simple example of that would be just that if enough bad things happen to you in a certain area of life while you're growing up, and they could be things that don't look to other people that bad, but they're bad to you because you're little, tiny, and powerless and dependent. And so something that as an adult wouldn't be that big of a deal, somebody rejecting you or somebody not giving you what you want. But when you're little, you draw all these global conclusions about that can be quite devastating. And you're sitting there as a little tiny person who needs all this love and help from other people, and you're concluding, people don't really care about me that much. I can't get what I want because when I ask for it, I don't get it. In fact, people get mad at me. And so then now you've got this autopilot stuff going on of, I can't really get what I want. I'm not good enough. Nobody cares about me. And that creates all kinds of feelings, all kinds of behaviors that sabotage the person. I mean, we could go into infinite detail about all the ramifications of that. But so if that's running on autopilot outside your awareness, it doesn't matter how many Jack Canfield seminars you take, or how many Christy Whitman seminars you take, or how many Bill Harris seminars you take. If you are sabotaging yourself from doing it in various ways, then all that stuff doesn't matter. If, though, you have become aware enough that you can see this stuff happening, it just falls away. And then whatever it is you're trying to accomplish becomes easy, including being happy, being peaceful, doing stuff in the world, making a difference, all that sort of stuff.
So let me just clarify something. So just in the simplicity of okay, I eat too much chocolate, right? It's not the act of chocolate. You know you're eating the chocolate. It's more of backing up and becoming more conscious and aware of why, the behavior behind, or what's going on, the awareness behind the behavior, the energy behind, the reasoning.
It's sort of, to give a simple example, somebody mentions chocolate, or you see chocolate, or you get a certain feeling in your body or something like that, and it acts as a trigger. And then you make a series of internal pictures, things you say to yourself inside. You recall certain things you believe. Maybe you believe that if you feel a certain way, that chocolate will help. You feel different. It'll change your state, which it does. And so all these things are going on inside you, and you run certain of these, and then it ends in this really strong feeling of motivation to eat chocolate. And you probably intend on eating a reasonably, small piece of chocolate. But after you eat the first one, you go, wow, that was really good. And you're running other stuff in your head. And pretty soon you're eating more stuff than you intended. And, it isn't under your conscious control, really. It isn't a choice, really. I mean, it seems externally kind of like, okay, I keep choosing to do this. But the reason is all this unconscious, outside of awareness, cognitive stuff that's going on that leads to the impulse to do this. I mean, eating too much chocolate is probably the least of most people's problems,
Right.
But when you get triggered by something someone says that reminds you of some big hurt you had when you were a child, suddenly you start screaming at them, and that person is the person you're married to and most dependent on, and that you love the most, and then after a while they say, look, I can't do this anymore. I'm sorry, I want a divorce. And suddenly you're, I've had stuff like this happen. And so have a lot of people.
Yeah.
And there's all, or you want to start a business, but you have unconscious beliefs and ways of focusing on what you don't want. Everybody knows that. I meant to say this earlier, and I got off track a little bit. Everybody knows that what you focus on tends to create what happens in your life. The problem is what you're focusing on is not a choice unless you have enough awareness. When people say affirmations and do visualizations for a short period of time, they are exercising choice about what these internal representations they're making, visual internal representations and what they call auditory digital self-talk internal representation. But then the other 23 hours and 45 minutes, it's running on autopilot. And they're making, what happens is we have some sort of trauma in childhood, which, as I said, can be something that doesn't look that big of a deal.
Right.
And as a result, we say, okay, there is a danger out there, and I don't want more of that, so I have to watch out for it. So what do you have to do to watch out for something? You have to focus on it. You have to make internal representations of it. So people that have been in all the areas of life where someone has been traumatized, they will automatically, unconsciously, outside their awareness, focus on what they don't want.
Right.
Because, it makes logical sense.
Sure.
That if you want to avoid something, now the resourceful thing to do is to focus on what you want to get. When you're crossing the street, you could focus on, I don't want to get hit by these cars, or you could focus on, I want to get to the other side safely. And that's quite different, and
Yes.
It has a very different effect on your physiology, on all kinds of things. People when they're unconscious, focus a lot on what they don't want in certain areas of life, and then they keep attracting or creating more of it. And as long as it's outside your awareness, it seems like it's impossible to stop it from happening.
Yes.
Even when you say affirmations and you focus on what you want, it doesn't take very long, I noticed. I read Think and Grow Rich many, many, many years ago. I've read it over 50 times now. But he said, keep your mind on what you want and off of what you don't want. I found out it's not that easy to do that, except in the areas of life where where you're already doing it.
Yes.
The areas that are hard, that are a problem, it's hard to do that, because as soon as you start doing it, it occurs to you very quickly the reason you're using your willpower to focus on what you want is because you want to avoid that stuff you don't want.
Right.
I want to stop being poor, so I'm focusing on how I can make money, or how I can be prosperous. And then it occurs to you pretty quickly why you're doing that. And then there you are, focusing on, I don't want to be poor anymore. It's very difficult to be, and it's until you watch yourself do this with awareness, then it falls away. Changing the stuff using willpower or changing a belief using willpower doesn't really work. Anybody that's really, really tried hard to do this knows this is true. But what does work, and amazingly easily, is watching yourself. See, I tell people, if you're thinking negatively, keep thinking negatively. Do it with awareness. Because then it falls away. Because thinking positively when there's unconscious trauma that's generating it just leads to more negative thinking, actually. So the way to do anything that isn't working is do it with awareness. So at any rate,
perfect.
The next piece of this is I said, well, okay, what could you have a choice about? Well, you can have a choice about the things that you create. And I've identified 4 kind of areas of things that we all create. How you feel. All your feelings are generated by internal representations you make. So if you have a choice about your internal representations, you'll have a choice about how you feel. To the degree you are aware, you will have a choice about it. I don't think there's any 100% awareness where as a human being, you're not going to always feel good. That's just not possible. But you can feel good way, 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 way more than you feel good now, because all the areas where you're focusing on what you don't. In fact, one of the main symptoms of focusing on what you don't want is you feel bad. You generate instantly some kind of unpleasant feeling for yourself.
Absolutely.
And then the second thing that happens is that you end up getting it. And
yes.
So it's not like a lot of people think if you think once some negative thought, then you're going to get it. It's the stuff you do repeatedly,
Right.
So you have those people going on cancel, and all this worrying about they thought, the neighbor boy got hit by a car, and now you're worried about your child, and now he's going to get hit by a car because I thought of that or something. That's a little overboard on that sort of thing. So anyway, how you feel is the first one.
Right.
How you behave is the second one.
Yes.
Your behavior is generated by the stuff you do inside, outside your awareness. If you do it with awareness, then you can behave by choice, which means not only do you not do all these things that you later regret, which a lot of us have done, me included, but you also can behave in a certain way, take action when you want to. How many people have made some sort of a resolution that they're going to do something to become more successful or to get in shape or to eat right or whatever, and then it doesn't last very long because what's generating it is outside your awareness. It's not a choice. So your behavior, your ability to take action, that's why I said it becomes like painting by numbers to carry out the to-do stuff you learned in all these courses and the books you read and everything. The third thing is what becomes a choice is which people you attract or become attracted to. We unconsciously are attracted to certain kinds of people. A lot of it is because of what we believe, because beliefs are self-fulfilling prophecies. So if you believe that no one will like you, let's say, you will tend to attract people that don't like anybody, that are or don't like people like you. You will arrange unconsciously to be surrounded by people that will make what you believe seem to be true. And then you go, yeah, I knew it. People go through their whole life gathering evidence, quote unquote,
right,
that all this stuff they believe is true, whether it really is or not. Because beliefs really aren't true or false, because any belief you believe, you can gather tons of evidence that you're right. And the guy right next to you could believe the opposite thing, and he's gathering evidence that he's right.
Right. It's all perspective.
The distinction that really makes sense with a belief is it resourceful or is it not resourceful? That's the distinction I like to make about beliefs. We can pretend that a belief is true or false, but it's the opposite for somebody else. They've gathered their own evidence. If you believe that some of the resourceful things are true, you'll gather evidence that's true, and that it will become a stronger and stronger belief. So at any rate, people attract people that will help them be right about what they already believe, and you give off all kinds of social cues that cause certain people to be attracted to you too. So a lot of people that feel like a victim because of trauma they've had when they were in childhood, they attract victimizers who can spot prey pretty easily, but that's going on unconsciously. So how you feel, how you behave, which people and situations you attract or become attracted to, and the fourth one is what meanings you assign to what happens. Because another thing that's often stunning to people is that nothing out there means anything. Nothing has any intrinsic meaning. One of the big gifts of being a human being is that you assign all the meaning to everything that happens.
Yes, we're meaning makers.
But meaning making is like electricity. You can light up a city with electricity, or save a life with a medical equipment, or there's all kinds of positive things. But you can also electrocute someone.
Yeah.
And meaning making is the same way.
Yes.
If the meanings are resourceful, they just have this cascading effect of good things that happen. If they are not resourceful, you can talk yourself out of being successful. You can talk yourself out of being loved. You can, or mean yourself out of just about anything.
Yeah.
So those four things: how you feel, how you behave, which people and situations you attract or become attracted to, and what things mean, can all become a choice if you're aware enough. So then the next logical question that occurred to me is, okay, who has this kind of awareness? And how did they get it? I mean, whenever I want to do something, I try to find somebody else who's done it and steal all their ideas. I want to at least start off copying what they did rather than just using trial and error.
Right.
They've already done trial and error, and they found. So, you look at people that have meditated for 30 years or more, they have tremendous awareness. And back in 2005, Richie Davidson, this researcher at the University of Wisconsin, they scanned the brains of a lot of these Tibetan Buddhist monks. And one of them, a guy named Mathieu Ricard, they deemed the world's happiest man based on his brain scan. He had done 50,000 hours of meditation. Some of the other monks had only done 10,000 hours, which is still a lot. But anyway, I took up my calculator and I said, okay, 50,000 hours. Let's say he did that over 30 years. How long did he have to meditate every day? And it turned out to be, without going through all the math, 4 hours and 34 minutes a day.
Wow. That's a
day
lot.
after day for 30 years. And I thought, okay, who's going to do that? You have to devote your life, like he has, to being a monk to do something like that. But you can't watch Breaking Bad and take the kids to soccer practice and do all the other stuff of life that people want to do and have a job and all that sort of thing, and do something like that. And so this sort of brings me back to Holosync, because we, over billions of hours of use by these 2 million people that have used it, and all the feedback they've given it, and being very familiar with with traditional meditation and all the signposts that happen when you do that, because I was meditating at least 2 hours a day and had periods of time where I was meditating 7 or 8 hours a day for quite a long time before I discovered Holosync. We believe that you get about 8 hours of meditation out of every hour of Holosync. So, and you skip the big learning curve at the beginning too. So people, we noticed as they did this, just became tremendously self-aware. And all these things that I've been talking about did begin to become more and more and more of a choice for people. And then I added one more thing to this. I said, I was teaching certain principles at retreats we would have, and I noticed that the people that attended the retreats and learned these principles and started to put them into practice, they became aware even more quickly. And it was really because what I was doing, in not a very refined way in the beginning, was I was describing where to direct that awareness. I mean, one place you could direct that awareness would be to learn to watch your own internal representations, to notice the pictures you're making in your mind and the things you're saying to yourself in your mind. There are also internal representations of sound and smell and taste and all kinds of kinesthetic things like just emotions, touch, sense of balance, heat and cold, pressure, pain. There's all kinds of kinesthetic internal representations also. But as you watch these, the big category I mentioned is whether you focus on what you want or you don't want. There's other ways of focusing that have consequences too. But if you just notice that, and as a result of the choice that it created, stop focusing on what you don't want, it would totally change any person's life.
Absolutely.
And the areas of life, what we found is the areas of life where people are focusing on what they don't want are the areas of life that aren't working. So if anybody that's listening to this that has an area of their life that isn't working, I guarantee you in that area of life, automatically outside your awareness, you're focusing on what you don't want, what you're afraid of, what you're worried about, what you want to avoid.
Absolutely.
And so anyway, I developed a quite elaborate system of showing people how what I would call your internal map of reality, this collection of internal processes, how they work, and then you can practice watching each of them one at a time until more and more of this stuff becomes a choice.
Sorry to interrupt you, but we're going to have to start wrapping up. So I would love for you to just tell everybody where they can get a hold of you. And I mean, it's amazing information. I can listen to you all day, but because it's a short show, we got to wrap it up and let them continue to talk with you in a different way. So where can they get a hold of you? We're going to put a link under the video. I'm gonna put on my glasses and look at my computer screen here. I mean, certainly they can go to centerpoint.com. Are you going to have something underneath this? Yes, under the video, exactly.
Under the video. So I would say that people they can listen to a free demo soundtrack online of Holosync and find out how it feels to do this. I assume rather than giving a link here, I'll just rely on the one that you'll put under the video screen, because we have several different ones, and we probably have one that is attached to your name, so we might as well send them to that one. It'll be right under the video. Yeah, they can go and they can learn more about Holosync, and they can experience it for themselves instantly, and it's pretty amazing as you'll find out.
Awesome. Okay, well, thank you so much for being our guest. Please let us know what you're taking away from this. Bill gave such tremendous information on awareness and the 4 things that we actually have choice on. So, leave a comment. Let us know what you're taking away from it. Bill, thank you so much for being our guest. It's amazing having you here and all of your wisdom. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much. I hope it wasn't too much information. You wind me up, and I got it. You got a lot to say and a lot to share. Thank you so much, Bill. Watch this more than once. Absolutely. There's a lot to take in. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me as a guest. You're welcome. Bye, everybody.